Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for our preview and predicted 11, plus all sorts of Chelsea news. And for once, hard-hitting questions live stream ahead of Chelsea against Brighton, or Brighton against Chelsea, I should say. Only 2 days since Chelsea lost 1-0 at the Etihad with, one of the worst performing £100 million players I've ever seen. I say that, two of the worst performing £100 million players I've ever seen, because Jack Grealish on the other side was equally as bad, or at least close to it. But I don't really care what Jack Grealish at Man City does, because end of the day, they still won. So, we are now 13 points behind Man City. And one thing's good, at least we don't have to kind of almost force ourselves into thinking about, could we still win the title or not? At least we're now all fully aware that it's done. Do you know what I mean? But we need to keep winning, because a lot of teams behind us have games in hand. And if they theoretically win all their games, we're not comfortable in top 4 anymore whatsoever. So we need to actually get on a run at some point again. And we will be absolutely fine, in my opinion. We always have a bit of a tough run, but then other teams will have tough runs while we just win every game. So we will be fine, in my opinion. But there are a lot of things to actually discuss, in my opinion, today. Number one, Thomas Tuchel has publicly criticised Romelu Lukaku, both after the game at Man City, for the most part, and then he was asked about it again in today's press conference and hinted or spoke about it again, in my opinion, completely rightly so. But certain individuals in the media have, of course, taken this the way of, Thomas, you should be careful, because you never know what happens at Chelsea. I'm like, all right, you're already starting the verge of Lukaku getting rid of Tuchel, and I'm not having it. I'm not going to accept it, and I'm going to sit here until the day one of them is gone. I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can that Lukaku does not get rid of Tuchel. I'm going to try everything I can. But there are a few other hard-hitting questions we need to discuss. And in my opinion, I put it in the title, and maybe it's not as big as I thought, or I think, but are any of our forwards actually good enough? Like, we sit here and we spend so much money on this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy, and we debate every preview after every game, that guy should have played, or this guy should play, or that guy should play, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Are any of them even good enough? Does it even matter which one of them plays? Are they all just not good enough? Or is it a case that Tuchel needs to do a few things differently? Does he maybe need to stick with a similar front three for a while to give them all a bit of momentum or a bit of consistency? Does he need to do it? Does he need to slightly adapt the system to make the forwards play better? But how many of these forwards have been consistently great in any system? So can we just blame the system? There's a lot to discuss. And obviously we will then in the end preview Brighton against Chelsea. But I mean, we literally played Brighton not too long ago. So, there's not like something crazy new, but we will discuss who should or might or will or whatever will play. But as you can see, I'm already joined by two very special guests. We will be joined later on by Charlie as well. But he first has to get home from work. But we are already joined by Mr. Clutch. You weren't here for the Man City player ratings live stream. So in hindsight of that, and now ahead of Brighton, how do you feel at the moment?
At the time, I was disappointed with the result, but I tended to agree with you that Tuchel got the system wrong. I mean, the day before, he literally said, we're not going to play the same way, and we played almost pretty much identical. And I've seen somebody today who was at the game said Thiago Silva was making players play a little bit farther back, which I don't necessarily agree. I think our game plan was to hold back and kind of play for the counter. But if that's what we were going to do, then, I mean, the players we had in the front three were never going to work. Ziyech is not a counterattacker. Pulisic is sometimes a counterattacker, but he plays deeper. He didn't have a great game. He didn't take on players like he should. Lukaku was, like, if you look at the heat map for Lukaku, he literally just stayed at the middle. It was literally just the middle of the entire pitch. That's what he did the entire game. Where Pulisic was like defending back in the right back position. Ziyech was a little bit forward, but still defending. I think the problem that we came to see is if we want to go at Man City, I think this formation is what, I mean, I don't think we would have done any better. We probably would have got battered a little bit more. But I think the problem right now is the formation. And if you don't have proper wing backs, if Alonso is the guy that you're asking to get 100 touches and to do something spectacular with those 100 touches, if you go back and look at the games with Chile and James, if you look how many touches they have, it's insane. They're one of the most. Jorginho and like maybe whoever the center back is the only ones who have more than our wing backs. Almost every game, James and Chilwell both had 90 some touches. So the offense flows through them. When you take them away, if you take and put Aspie out there and then you put Alonso on the other side, you're asking 3 forwards who are all good in their own right at their own thing to play against City's defense, who has improved over the years, and they're just going to get overrun. That's just how it works. I mean, even so much the offense didn't, like, you could always tell if you just look at all the heat maps, like, we didn't push forward enough. And I don't tend to agree with, like, our players. I'll talk about this later. I don't tend to believe, like, they're not good enough. I think there's a mix. I think it's a more complicated situation than we make it sound. So that's where I'm going to leave it until later.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Before I get to you, Pies, let me just quickly read out this comment by Ardashir saying, people don't seem to understand that Tuchel can get it wrong in one game, like against City, and our attackers' bar mount still not be good enough. In my opinion, very good comment. Appreciate that, Adash. But Pies, of course, thank you for tuning, or not tuning in, for being here as well. I'll ask you, obviously we were kind of half reacting to it while we did the player rating show after Man City, but not fully. If you maybe want to explain to people that haven't realized what exactly Tuchel said about Lukaku, and did you have a reaction to it in a way of, oh, he shouldn't have done that, or was completely right to do it, or was there much of a reaction to that in your head?
I mean, not really. I mean, like, he got asked a question about like what he thought of Lukaku's performance, and he told the truth. He said what he saw. He said he had many ball losses, which he did. He said, what else did he say? He had ball losses, like it wasn't, I don't know, connected or something.
To create service for himself sometimes.
Yeah, like basically the whole point he was making was it's not all about Lukaku. You know, it's not. And again, in the press conference today, he was saying, you know, it's not 10 players feed one player. We're a team. You know, it's not Chelsea. It's not football that way. You know, he's a part of the team. He's got responsibility as well. And absolutely right. Like, could we do more to play him in more times? Yes, 100%. I tagged you in a tweet, Laurenz, which I saw. If Aspie looks up and plays him in behind, he is in. And he likes those running in behind when he points. He likes those situations. And he gets them a lot for Belgium with De Bruyne. And yes, some of it is about vision. But as I said, and players picking him out. But a lot of it is simple pressing, simple holding the ball, not losing the ball. Like, the thing I'm most furious about is his lack of pressing. His attitude last game stunk. Like, it was like he wasn't even... Like, he didn't want to be out there. He was tying his fucking shoelace.
Even in training, in the clip you sent me.
Yeah, and the training.
Sorry, not training, warm-up.
Warm-up, yeah. Warm-up training. But if anyone hasn't seen that and wants it, just DM me on Twitter. My DM's open. I'll send it to you. But basically, it was Lukaku in the warm-up, literally not pressing, not trying. Not even jogging. He was walking. He was flinging a leg out.
Everyone around him was.
Huh?
Everyone around him was doing it. Sorry to interrupt
you.
Yeah,
and it's not even one of those... I had a few people say, oh, you know, Pi, shut up, it's a rondo. No, he literally wasn't moving. Like, this is before a game against Man City. Like, get a move on and start acting like you're going to play. And I'll tell you what, if I'd watched that, if I'd saw that before the game, I would have been like, oh my God. Like, I would have known what to expect going into the game. But because I didn't see that until after, like, that made me even more furious. Like, it was just disgusting. Like, if he plays tomorrow night and pulls out those same shenanigans that he did against City, like, in terms of just not pressing, not even running, not moving at all, like, his heat map was a massive orange dot in the middle of the centre of the pitch. Like, I don't understand. Like, seriously, sort your touch out, sort your control out, link up with your teammates. Yes, talk to them if they're not finding you, but actually press. Work for your team. Work for the fans. Work for the manager. Like, this guy, right, had the audacity to say after his interview, or in his interview, you don't have to question my commitment to this club. Are you sure? Are you sure? It's looking like PR now. Are you sure? Because if you... I get the sense that he doesn't... I don't know. Does he know what he's doing wrong? Like, I'm just so confused. You literally cannot have any excuse for just standing there for 90 minutes. Like, I'm baffled. I'm honestly baffled with him. And Tuchel's got a massive right to be angry at him. And yes, it does worry me every time Tuchel comes out and says something, because I'm like, oh, great, what's going to happen now? What's Lukaku's reaction going to be? Because I don't care if things are, so-called settled behind the scene. Lukaku will always be an emotional guy. He's an emotional player, he's an emotional guy. And leopards don't change their spots. Lukaku can react badly to things again. It's not just one situation and it's forgotten, So Tuchel has to say the truth, but at the same time, every time he does say something like this, I'm just like criticises him in public. I'm just worried because it's just like, well, right, you know what I mean? Like, we're not behind the scenes. Lukaku's obviously going to read these, and he may not kick off again, but he may be saying stuff to his agent. We don't know. There's a lot of different things that you can do with situations, and it's just, I hope he just fixes up, man. Because I'm seeing so many fans annoyed him, and rightly so. Like, it's impossible to defend this guy if you're not going to score goals, or basically if you're not doing anything else, at least do the minimum, which is show some effort and show some care. That's the minimum we want from every single player. And if you're not doing that, you shouldn't be playing. And he should have been subbed off earlier. But the one other thing I'll say
earlier, bro, he played the full 90.
Yeah, the one other thing I'll say before we move on is Tuchel, and I've said this all the time now, after that interview, he's got his hands tied behind his back. Because what do? If you drop Lukaku, say you play Havertz tomorrow, right? Havertz scores. And then you keep playing Havertz. The longer Lukaku's at the side, the longer, in my opinion, he's going to become more unhappy. And then the board are going to be like, well, we're not getting value for £100 million asset. Like, whatever the board, whether they agree with Tuchel or not, which they did over the previous situation, at the end of the day, I've said this, it's either Tuchel or Lukaku, or they actually work together, which is looking not likely right now. So, like, I don't know. You can't. I've said Tuchel's kind of forced to pick him, even when he plays bad. It's kind of forced because you spent £100 million on him. Like, he's the club's biggest record signing. And I know people say, well, Havertz is 72 million. Well, actually, Havertz is younger. You can afford to have that time on the bench. Lukaku's in his prime. We need results now. We need him to deliver now. The longer you leave him out the side, worse it gets. But at the same time, the longer you leave him in the side, the worse we look. So we're screwed either way, unless he fixes up.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I will continue on that. Just reading out Adash's comment here again, and that too, if you haven't seen, and I actually hadn't. So cheers, Adash, for that. Matt Lowe reported that Tuchel and Lukaku have had at least one heated conversation. But personally, I don't find that a problem. I think, in certain situations, a heated conversation is not necessarily a bad thing, no matter who that is between. Like, that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. But there's a few things about Lukaku. Like, could we potentially play a little bit more to suit him? Yes. But could he do more to suit us? Also, yes. Because Lou said in the chat here, he's a striker, not a pressing machine. And that's true. But are you telling me Lukaku is not fit enough to press more? Because if he isn't, then that's its own problem in and of itself. And I think he is fit enough to press. So then bloody do it more. For me, there's a couple of things. I thought this whole criticizing him publicly, even though it was kind of not forced upon him, but still kind of used the opportunity given to him by the journalist asking him about Lukaku's performance. For me, this was kind of like, I think he will start again tomorrow. We'll get to our teams later, but I think this was like, okay, I'll criticize you now. And if then still nothing improves, then I'll drop you. But tomorrow, I think he still starts. Because to some extent, yeah, his hands are a little bit tired. But to some extent, I personally felt he should have been dropped for more than one game in the first place. We've been sat here on streams, and I did say that on multiple occasions. I did not think he should have been brought back after just one game. And especially with how his performances against Spurs, Chesterfield, and in pretty much every game since then have been, but especially after those two, I was like, well, no, you can't do an interview like that and play shit and still be in the team. While other players are barely getting a chance. Like, Havertz started against Spurs, scored, broke his finger, and hasn't seen the light of day since. Like, how is that fair? Like, and this is nothing to do with how much either of them cost, by the way. This is like, he's not even playing better than the other players. So my biggest problem, I've come to this realization, it's not like since the last stream, and I would have brought it up in that. Otherwise, for me, the biggest problem with him is not, like, aside from the interview, of course, isn't necessarily that he doesn't press enough, because yes, he doesn't quite press enough, but at the same time, a bit like Lou said, if you buy a striker like Lukaku, you shouldn't complain that he's not going to press as much as Havertz does, because You kind of knew that. Like, it's like if Man United were complaining that Ronaldo doesn't press. I'm like, well, he's 36.
But, Laurenz,
of course.
Laurenz, can I just say something? What about Giroud for Chelsea? What about Giroud? Giroud
he didn't press as much either as like Havertz and Tammy. He tried.
Right, he was a pressing machine for us and France. He pressed loads. And I said this all the time.
But he's always too slow to press properly anyway.
No, but at least he tried. Like, that's my point.
Yeah,
he was slow, but he pressed. There's no, like, Lukaku's fast and doesn't press. Like, what's the issue here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just lazy. He's lazy as fuck.
It is true. It is true. But these things, of course, they're annoying. In my opinion, his hold-up play, especially his aerial hold-up play, is awful. I mean, I know, Pice, you praised it a couple of games ago, his hold-up play. I always said after those streams, after those games, I was like, fair enough if you saw that. I personally didn't see it, but not in the sense that I disagreed with you, but more in that I didn't notice it. Then I looked at it at City, and then I think against City, we all agreed that it wasn't good. But the biggest problem for me is, and the most frustrating thing about it is, the big thing that we always criticized about all of our forwards, and we'll get to our forwards in more detail in a second, was always the decision-making. But some of that is, to some extent, explainable by lack of experience, right? For all of them, essentially, right? None of them have played enough, aside from Mason, because he plays every week, have had probably enough games at this level and consistently enough to have always great decision-making. Because decision-making, in my opinion, is the biggest thing that comes with experience. Because ability, whether you can dribble or not, you either can or you can't by the time you're like 20. Do you know what I mean? Like, either you can or you can't. Sure, you can get a bit better, but there's limits to that. The same goes with shooting, same goes with passing. Vision is maybe trainable. Movement is trainable, in my opinion, but certain things aren't, right? But what's frustrating to me is we signed Lukaku, a 28-year-old player, supposed to be in his prime and supposed to help us with exactly that issue. And now think back through our games. How many times Lukaku's decision-making actually ruins our attacks? Just think back to when we drew 1-1 at Liverpool, when Reece James got sent off basically at half-time, or like just before half-time, and that's when Liverpool scored the equaliser after we went 1-0 up through a Kai Havertz header. Lukaku himself literally cost us 2-3 guaranteed goal-scoring opportunities with his bad decision-making. Once he passed it to the wrong place, once he passed it way too late, and once he decided not to pass. And it's the same situation against Man City. We're not even just talking about his big chance that he missed. His pass to Ziyech, where Ziyech was like a yard offside, and Lukaku should have been fully aware that Ziyech was. Because, by the way, Ziyech was only offside because Ziyech made a run to drag the defender away from Lukaku. So Ziyech wasn't just making a bad run. Ziyech was dragging a player away from Lukaku. Football IQ can't be taught. Yeah, football IQ can't be taught either, but football IQ is just a broader term for a lot of the things I just spoke about, top ends, in my opinion. But anyway, he had Alonso to his left. Would I have wanted him to play that pass? Not really. But it would have certainly been a better pass to Ziyech. Whether Ziyech was onside or not, the better pass in that situation would have been to his left because Ziyech was more covered by defenders. But even more so, he's a £100 million striker, and he decided, basically in front of goal, I'm going to pass instead of shoot. Where's your decision-making? What is it? Like, and even his big chance, why did he think that shooting from outside of the box when the goalkeeper is that close to him was the best decision in the first place? Like, any good player rounds the keeper in that situation. Ederson came out steaming so much. He was already so close to him before Lukaku ever entered the box. He needs to just push the ball in front a little bit and run past him. Either he's taken down, it's a pen, or he has an empty goal in front of him. But no, he decided to shoot from 22 yards with the goalkeeper already having made the angle, or 22 yards an exaggeration, maybe like 19, 20 yards. Even though the goalkeeper had already made the angle for him super difficult, because Lukaku's shot wasn't bad. Lukaku's shot would have gone near enough the top corner. And that's why I feel like people let him off a little bit too much. But I was like, it's a bit like with the penalty. Yeah, I will never praise a goalkeeper of the opposition, like, too great of a save, can't score. Yes, you can. You need to read the goalkeeper. Lukaku didn't do that because he realized way too late how quickly Ederson was coming out of his goal. And he also made it way too obvious which corner he was going, which is why Ederson went for it. Go round the guy. Like, that's what I want when I sign a 28-year-old player for £100 million. Like Pies made the explained it a second ago. Havertz, yes, we paid a lot of money for Kai Havertz, but he's significantly younger. So there is certain things that we expect to still need improvement. That's what happens when you sign someone at 21. When you sign someone at 28 and he calls himself multi-dimensional at every chance he gets, And even though I probably said it accidentally, but I apparently called him multi-illusional last time, which is the best explanation for Romelu Lukaku I've ever heard, and I've made it up myself. But sorry for having an opinion. What? No, I just gave you my opinion, lad. All right, calm down. But yeah, so that's for me the most frustrating thing for Lukaku, that we signed a player at 28 for a lot of money, and he has the equally as bad decision-making as all of the players we already have. And as I'm like, that's exactly the part we kind of wanted to avoid getting by signing a more experienced and older player. And we still have that problem. Do you agree, Clutch? That's his biggest problem. Because, yeah, we can talk about the pressing and we can talk about touch and we can talk about this, but they're not always bad. You know, he's had good touches. He's had maybe not great pressing always, but like I said, to some extent, like if you're that big and you're that muscular, we can't expect it to be same like Havertz. But Pies also did make a fair point. Giroud tried. So if Giroud can, Lukaku can. So he could still do it more for sure. But for me, the most frustrating and disappointing thing compared to what I expected when we signed him is just that his decision-making is awful. And it's no better than Mason's, who is criticized for it all the time. Pulisic's, Callum's, Havertz's. Like, I mean, Timo is not even the decision-maker that we usually criticize, to be honest. But like, we criticize all of these players for it. And then we spend 100 million and we sign another player who has the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you put it like that, I think decision making is a problem within itself within our squad. It seems like nobody picks out the right pass. Nobody's brave enough to pick out the right pass except Kovacic 90% of the time. He's the only one brave enough. I know Pius was talking about that pass from Aspie. Aspie was never going to make that pass. He's not brave enough to do it. It's just, he might have the ability. Pulisic doesn't have the ability to pass those kind of passes. That's not his game. Ziyech does. He just didn't have the game that he probably should have had. He was making poor passes left and right. So, I mean, decision-making is a problem, especially with Lukaku, because I think one of the biggest strengths that you have as a forward is your decision-making. Like you said, we've seen good touches. We've seen good positions that he takes up. He made that run for Aspie. That was a good position. No, he didn't get the ball, but yes, at the point, you still got to make those runs. You still have to have the good decisions at the same time. I mean, you look at Havertz last year for the goal he scored in the Champions League final. He could have taken that first time, but he didn't. He waited for the keeper to come out and went around him. I mean, that should have been something that Lukaku did. I think there are many things wrong, and it's not just one solution. It's not just we buy players and that fixes problems. Because, I mean, that's historically how we've gotten into this problem in the first place. We just buy players, hope they patch up a solution. It's not always that easy. And yes, Lukaku's got to make better decisions. And I know a lot of people are defending him, and it's like, it's not his fault he cost $100 million. But when you come here and you were in the last 2 years the top 3 strikers in the world, you're expected to be able to do something. You're expected to be able to make a magic out of a moment. That's what we bought you for. It's not just to go and head the ball, because if it was just to go head the ball, Giroud could have stayed. We made that clear from the start. But the problem is there's everything else that's going wrong. And I know people are putting stats in the chat like, oh yeah, Benzema doesn't press as much. Look at the people around Benzema, though. Are those systems necessarily made for pressing? Real Madrid's not a pressing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, you can't just say some player does it and some player doesn't.
Our team,
Real Madrid don't as a team. So, like, obviously Benzema isn't supposed to, but Lukaku is supposed to, but doesn't. That is not comparable whatsoever.
Our system is based purely off of possession and pressing. That's the main thing that we do. We have to keep the ball in possession, and then we got to press when we don't. That is it. There's no other questions. And I mean, I do have a problem to an extent with that, but it worked for us for last year, so it's not like it doesn't work. So you still have to be able to willing to do it. And like Paya said, you have to show some kind of commitment and want to do it. I agree with what he said. If you can't do it, sure, but at least try. I mean, like I said in the heat map, he literally just stood in the middle circle. That's what he did. There's a literal giant red line or giant red mark to where he just sat. That's all he did. So you can question him all you want. That's a bad move. You cannot be that static. So, I mean, for me, I agree completely, 100%. Decision making is one of his biggest problems currently.
Yeah, and like, obviously, I see what people say, and it's like, you know, Lou saying, yeah, things have gone too far with Lukaku. Everyone is treating him like he's a bum now. And I see why you say that. And he's not a bum.
He's playing like a bum.
Yeah, but he's playing kind of like a bum. But he's not as bad as like Werner. Is he? No. But he also costs £100 million and keeps telling us how great he is. That's the big difference. It makes a big difference how arrogant and how egotistical you come across whenever you speak. Even in his apology video, he was like smirking, couldn't even speak his words properly, didn't even have the balls to speak up. Like he was happy to speak loud and clear and confident when he was given an interview to Sky Italia. But in his apology interview, he looked like a 12-year-old boy. Like, shoulders down, a little bit like shy. I'm like, since when are you shy, mate? You've never looked shy in the last 6 months. But as soon as you F up, there's all that confidence is gone all of a sudden, except calling yourself multidimensional. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I get that, Global is clearly upset. The thing with you, Global, that I don't understand is you clearly disagree heavily with my thoughts about this Lukaku situation, which is fair enough. Yeah, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But what I don't understand, and I appreciate it in a way, but we've talked about this a lot in the last 3 weeks. You're still here all the time. I mean, if you disagree so heavily, why are you here? Because I'm not going to change my mind because of you. So I do apologize in a way, but also I'm a bit confused. But I appreciate you for being here regardless. Let's quickly talk about something much more positive because something great has happened. Edouard Mendy, of course, currently at AFCON with Senegal, has been voted or has been appointed the best goalkeeper in the world at the FIFA Best Awards. So isn't that fantastic? It's not just he was snubbed at the Ballon d'Or Awards, somehow Donnarumma won best goalkeeper. No one will understand why. Yes, Euros, but that was 6 games. All the other games that Mendy was much better in, right? And Mendy didn't even play the Euros. You never know what would have happened otherwise. Let alone him not even making the top 30 of the Ballon d'Or awards, of the Ballon d'Or votings, which makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm very glad and very happy for him that he won the FIFA Best Men's Goalkeeper. Congratulations, fully deserved. But yeah, Pice, anything you would like to add on to this Lukaku discussion that we've had so far, or shall we move on to my other hard-hitting question?
I think we should move on, other than obviously because just for anyone who doesn't know, the best awards, I think you have obviously manager, which hopefully Tuchel will win over Mancini and the others. And obviously I think they do. I don't know, do they do midfielder and attacker? I'm not sure. I think it's a bit like the Ballon d'Or thing. So yeah, that'll be interesting.
It's essentially just another Ballon d'Or that is not controlled by the media, but instead controlled by FIFA. Not sure.
Yeah, this one's. I think they do like a World 11 as well, which is obviously the major thing, which everyone wants to get in, and yeah. So we'll see what else comes out of that.
We will. My apologies. Let's get to that other question that I do want to talk about, and yes, it will to some extent include Lukaku a little bit, but I don't want to focus too much on Lukaku because we've obviously spoken about Lukaku a lot over the last 3 weeks, like I just touched on. But a genuine question which I've thought of, I can't remember when, yesterday or today, it's like, are our forwards, any of them, aside from probably Mason Mount and potentially Lukaku, but definitely not right now, Lukaku, even actually good enough? And when I say good enough, I don't mean good enough. I don't want to talk about good enough to play for Chelsea. That's an irrelevant statement because that depends on where Chelsea are at that moment in time, right? But what I mean is, are they good enough to challenge Man City? Because now, even though Raheem Sterling just won Premier League Player of the Month, however deservedly you think he won that, but he won it. But until a few weeks ago, he wasn't even playing for Man City. And there was rumors that he was going to leave in January or the latest the summer because Pep basically didn't pick him anymore for a while. Raheem Sterling is better than every single one of our forwards. And I'm saying that right now. Okay, it's difficult to compare Sterling to Lukaku because they're completely different style players. But in terms of all the other ones, Sterling is better than every single one of them. He's a better dribbler than Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic. Even though his finishing isn't great, it's still better than those guys. His passing is better than... Okay, to be honest, I haven't really seen Raheem Sterling pass that much. But Raheem Sterling gets slagged and dragged and all sorts of things. And he's still better than all of our players. Like, just because I put it in my tweet in terms of what we're going to talk about today, should Eden Hazard come back to Chelsea? I mean, he shouldn't. But would he be better than some of our players on some occasions? Maybe, yes. But does Eden Hazard have the fitness to press like Thomas Tuchel wants him to? No chance. But if we wanted a player that's better, then what we have to sign Raheem Sterling. Like, I'm not saying now that he won Player of the Month and he's actually playing again, who knows whether that happens. But Like, Sterling is better than all of our players. And Sterling was until a month ago not deemed one of Man City's good players or great players up front, right? So are any of our forwards even good enough? Like, I almost take Mount and Foden out of that equation because to me, they're not really forwards, even though they're playing forward positions, but their attributes, even though they're used up front, are not typical forward attributes in my head. But at the same time, do I think some of our players are potentially better than Jack Grealish? Yeah, maybe. On the 29th of May, Kyle looked twice a player standings. That is true, Lou. That is very true. But I'm saying right now. And right now means kind of for a large majority of the season. And I will, that goes for every single one of our forwards, including Lukaku. Of course, it's more difficult when the wing-backs all of a sudden Alonso and Azpilicueta compared to Reece James and Ben Chilwell. Makes it difficult for all the players involved in the squad. But it's a genuine question where I'm like, are they even good enough? And if they're not good enough, and Pies, I know you're going to come to that about board and recruitment and what's the word, scouting. That's not even what I'm trying to get at because, well, maybe to some extent I am. Because I'm like, we've spent a lot of money on these players. Like, other than Mason Mount and Callum Hudson-Odoi, none of these players came for particularly cheap. You could say Ziyech wasn't that expensive in the modern market, but all the other players cost a lot of bloody money, considering that they're not very good. Like, because I see a lot of people, like Lou said it earlier, like, we never have enough consistency and enough, like, the same players never get 2 games in a row. I mean, they don't. To some extent, reasons are overplaying because we have so many games, injuries, the Rona, and also, as far as I'm aware, City rotate their forwards all the time as well. So it works for them. So why is that the problem for us? I don't personally quite believe it. We are also joined by Charlie. Charlie, appreciate you for turning in. I'll just pose the question to you straight away. First of all, I hope you're well, mate. But do you think any of our forwards, except Mason Mount, is actually good enough to challenge Man City? Like, because we've had this, like, as much as Clutch said earlier, it worked for us. But also last season, we were kind of like, the forwards. And that's why we went out for a striker, right? Because all of us were like, we're not finishing this and we're not finishing that. We won the Champions League. Of course, we did. And it was fucking fantastic that we did. But the Champions League is the different kind of competition to the Premier League. A league system is not the same as a tournament system. It's different. But are any of them even actually good enough? Because, I mean, Charlie, you've been here for a few previews. We see here, who should play? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters, to be honest, mate. Look, this is not a problem since Lukaku's come. This has been a problem for a long time. I think the Champions League, winning that, papered over a lot of cracks in this squad. The fact we won it and we still needed a centre forward, we weren't even that good going forward anyway. So for me right now, no, none of our attackers are good enough. Lukaku will play, comes in for stick. And you can argue rightly so in some aspects. The fact it cost £100 million, is meant to solve the goal scoring issue. But the issue is not just him. The issue is all of them. But bar Mason Mount, no attacker has consistently delivered or shown anything near what we paid the money for them to come and do. All right, look at Lukaku, 100 million, but you look at Pulisic, 60 odd million pounds, Timo Werner, 50, Kai Havertz, 75 million, Ziyech, 40 million. None of these guys do anything. You look at City's attack. Would any of our players, would I want any? You'd want City's players rather than our attackers, and you'd want Liverpool's attackers rather than ours. And that for me is a big problem. So are they talented footballers? Yes. Do they do it on a consistent basis? Absolutely not. These guys might have one good game in, say, every 4 or 5 games. And when we're trying to go for a league title, that's not good enough. And it's probably, one of the big reasons why we've not challenged seriously for the league since Antonio Conte. And at the moment, we're not good enough to win the league. And I think Saturday showed that we're still quite a long way behind Manchester City in terms of a league system. Like, in terms of cup football, I think very much at the moment we're a cup side. It doesn't require the same level of consistency to win the cups as it does to win out over a 38-game season. But I mean, back to your question, ultimately, these attacking players aren't good enough. I don't know what it is. You see attacking players perform well for their other clubs, and then there's always a worry when we sign an attacker because we've got a history of having players that will turn up at the club that are good attackers sought after, put that Chelsea shirt on, and they're dreadful. there's very few that actually, if you look over the years, you look at Drogba, Costa, Eden Hazard. Okay, Pedro has contributed in certain points, but then you're going back to like the likes of your Ian Robbins, Duffs, Joe Coles, etc. Back in the early 2000s.
Ian Robbins was injured half the bloody time.
Yeah, but at least he had end product and he was decent. Like none of these guys have got any end product. None of them. So like, yeah, all right, they might get in, they might do something, but ultimately, they're not going to put it in the net. But this is a problem that's been going on for years and years and years. Really, as I said, Drogba, Costa, Hazard. And then you're looking back at Robin, Joe Cole, Duff.
And if I can interrupt you, like to add another question to that, do you think that's more down to those individuals? Do you think that's down to us having signed players that don't suit what we're trying to do? Do you think it's players not using using players not correctly? Or do you think it's literally the problem that we always said would come back to haunt us at some point, that we change managers all the time when we have players signed by different managers suited to different systems, and then whoever is the new manager needs to squeeze players suited for 3-4 different systems all into their system, and then that kind of doesn't work. Because one slight thing I disagree with you, I do think we are good enough to win the league without our big injury problems that we have, because City got a bit more lucky with that. I do think at full capacity we would be good enough to challenge them. At least I'm not saying maybe we would do it by the end, but I think we would have the squad to do it. But then we wouldn't do it because our forwards are good enough. Then we do it because our tactical approach and our defenders and midfielders are good enough to make up for the lack of forward output. But the forwards themselves, if you exclude them from the rest of the team, they are certainly not good enough. It's almost like the whole cup team, not league team. It's almost like we're a team, and I'm not talking about it in terms of pace, but in terms of, almost how long we can keep adrenaline going. We're almost a team of 100-meter sprinters, and City are a team of marathon runners, because that's why they bottle it in the Champions League every time. But they win the league all the time. But we are literally the opposite.
Yeah, I just think as well that it doesn't help that I think that the attacking players, as you touched on earlier, it seems to be a different three that start every game. That doesn't help with creating partnerships, creating continuity, creating an understanding at the top end of the pitch when it's constantly switching between different players. And I get it, that we've had to switch it up. With injuries of COVID, etc., and you might switch it up for different games. But I'd love to see us just pick a front three and just whatever happens, just roll with it for a number of games, just to see what happens. Because at the end of the day, we're just always changing it. And I don't think I was seeing something in the chat about a creative midfield player. I think we massively missed someone like a Cesc Fabregas, for example. There's no one. I know I'm going to defend Lukaku ever so slightly in terms of he actually makes runs and gets in good positions, but no one picks apart. No one gives him that pass that he's making that run for.
Earlier, bro.
Yeah, and look, don't get me wrong. He's not immune for criticism. He's got to do better. His hold-up play was awful at the weekend. He needs to relieve pressure at the top end of the pitch. But when he's making runs, no one's picking him out. There was one. Probably the same one you've seen, Pice. That. One where Aspie's got the ball. Lukaku's got a good run, and
you know what? It's painful as well because it's like the worst thing is I'm pretty sure I've watched a video of it. He looks at him like he literally looks at him, and then he passes sideways. So it's like, why didn't you pass it? Are you serious?
Yeah. But I think for me though, Reece James plays that pass because he's more forward. He's more forward thinking, and he's probably got a bit more confidence in his ability. So I'm not saying that,
bro. Can I just say, sorry to cut you off again?
That's right, mate.
This is why, one, I like Kovacic playing because he's very, very got that connection with Lukaku. He's very progressive this season. Two, that's why I like Hudson-Odoi on the left-hand side because I swear to God, he is the only player that tries to find Lukaku. And it's not always due to crosses. They just seem to have a better understanding. And I hope they play tomorrow night because I want to see it. You know what I mean? I want to see it again. I don't think any of these other forwards have that connection with him. I really don't. Apart maybe Mount, but other than that, I don't. I don't think so. And I'll stick to that opinion because from what I've seen, there's only very few limited players that actually work with Lukaku in this Chelsea squad at the moment.
Yeah,
that is true. Let me just quickly, because you were talking about it, I tried to find it. So let me just highlight what both of you are actually talking about. It was a tweet by Adam Newson, which Pice did tag me in. After the City game, and this like there you can see. I'm not sure if it's big enough for you guys, but basically you can all see the white line on the pitch. That's basically comes from Aspie, and you see Lukaku making the run. I did reply to Pice though. I mean, he didn't score his big chance on his strong foot. Would I have expected him to score it on his weak foot? Probably not at this point. But it would have been a chance for him for sure. And yes, Charlie, you make a good point. He makes runs and blah blah blah. But so does Timo Werner. So if that's what we were missing, we wouldn't have needed to sign anybody because we already had that. Do you know what I mean? Like there needs to be a little bit more. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this pass should have come. That doesn't take away from the fact that some of our other players aren't good enough either. And that's the conversation. I mean, you brought it up here now, Pice, about Callum. And obviously a lot of these players will, when I say they're not good enough, that doesn't necessarily go as a bad criticism towards the individuals, because I do want to explain it in a way that some of them are very young and some of them it's okay to still get better, right? Totally understandable. But I'm still saying that they're not good enough as of right now to challenge Man City in the forward areas for the league. That's kind of the problem. But Calijox appreciated the donation from a minute ago, saying Anelka was class when we were talking about obviously which forwards we had. Is a fair shout. Aaron, anyway, for subs to be in these live streams, I mean, there is in a way, but the problem is I'm not as lenient as Lewis, you could say. No, not dig at Lewis whatsoever. But I like to have a rough idea of who someone is before they come on a chat, because come on a stream, because anybody could come in. They could be coming out with, I don't know, racist abuse. They could be saying outrageous things, and I have no way of knowing what they're going to do. So that's kind of what I'm a little bit hesitant about. But if you get in touch with me and we talk a little bit and I get a rough idea of who you are, then yes. But not just like, hey, can I come on, please? I'm a little bit hesitant with that. I hope you understand from that perspective. And another super chat by Calidox, appreciate it, saying, why can't anyone shoot properly? Bloody bizarre. It's true. Why can't any of our players shoot? Like Mason Mount sometimes can shoot, but even Mason sometimes has shot. Well, I'm like, get the bloody ball off the floor. But half the other players, they can't shoot properly. It's genuinely outrageous. But Pi, so because you brought up Callum there, you said, oh, Callum can do this, or whatever you want, whatever way you want to word it. For me, it's still a case of, do you actually think any of them are good enough? Like, do you know what I mean by that question? Obviously, when I say they're good enough or not good enough, that doesn't mean I'm saying they're shit and awful. But that means, are they quite that level of good enough yet for some of them, and for some others, like maybe Timo and Hakim Ziyech, are they just plain simple good enough to do what us as fans, and to some extent the manager, are asking from them? Like, should we even expect that from them, or are they just not good enough to provide those things anyway?
It's an interesting debate. I think, I don't know. I mean, it depends. I mean, a lot of our forwards at the moment are well, not a lot, but a few of them are young. Havertz, Mount, who's more of a midfielder, but Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, still young. I've always thought that they're still kind of in the developing stage, and it's annoying because we want to win the title. And I think they're good enough to win cups, like one-off games and sort of two legs and things. I think they are. Like, I think we can. I do back them. I mean, we won the Champions League with these forwards are not Lukaku, so they have shown that they can be good enough. But it's over a 38-game season. I don't think a lot of them are good enough because they're not consistent enough. Now, the only way I see that changing is if some of them move on or they drastically improve, but it's not looking likely. You know what I mean? Like, and also a lot of the forwards we bought were they're all different. Like they're all like suited to different systems. Like Werner is a runner, but we don't really play against many high lines, so he's got limited technical ability. So here's what he is. Hudson-Odoi is more of a creator but can't finish. I don't really know what Ziyech is at the moment because he's not a creator, he's not a finisher, or I don't know what he is. He's better coming off the bench sometimes. But again, Pulisic has been very good in the past, but so inconsistent. We don't know what we're going to get when he starts. So Havertz again, great for the Champions League goal and was really solid in his overall performances in sort of last year's Champions League run. But in the Premier League, like his stats are horrific. And people tell me, oh, well, he improves the team. I agree, but he's not lethal enough. Like that's, if you take your minds back, we all wanted a striker because we saw Havertz up front last season and we was like, yeah, he's really promising, but we need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. But what Chelsea, they missed the trick because they bought a striker who only really suits one way of playing, and that's counter-attacking football. And we don't play that way. We play possession football. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous. They've missed the trick because our whole style of play now is sort of ruined when Lukaku plays because he doesn't fit our style of play. You know what I mean? And this is why I get so annoyed with Chelsea, because even Haaland, like, great finisher and stuff, but I don't know if he'd suit our style of play. Like last season, we thrived on technical forwards that were constantly moving. Someone, for example, someone like Dybala for Chelsea would be absolutely phenomenal. He would do miles better than Lukaku.
Would he? Or is it because we thought that about Lukaku, though?
No. They're different players. Like,
of course they're different.
He's technical. Players. You know what I mean? Like we don't suit a flat track bully kind of striker. I don't think in this system. Maybe going forward it might change, but even when we're trying to play with Lukaku, like the only way he works is if you play, like if Chilwell and James were here, you know, those quick balls across the box, you know, and by Lukaku sort of being the focal point up front. I saw a tactical piece on this. He allowed the wing backs to sort of be free people, but because we have Alonso and Aspi, they've not got the legs to constantly be in those positions that Chilwell and James are actually in the first place. Like there was a tactical a tweet. I don't know what it was, but it was a picture basically where Lukaku.
I even have this whole thing bookmarked because I wanted to talk about it once on the stream.
There was a video actually I watched earlier. Lukaku was on the halfway line, right, and he looked to his right hand side where James would be, but Aspi was still in defence, and that sort of fucked the attack up because he then had to pass it back into the midfield. And it all became really slow. But it could have been a really quick, fast attack, but it wasn't because Aspi wasn't in the position high up enough where James would have been. And that's why I keep saying, in terms of Lukaku, both our wing-backs being injured has ruined everything because they were like such a main outlet to the way we play as well. It's not even about these forwards a lot of the time. It's more about the wing-backs, in my opinion.
But they provided the attack. Is it about the wing-backs because our forwards aren't good enough?
It's a 50-50, but you know, even like when our attackers are higher up, like our wide forwards, trying to link up with Alonso and Aspi. I love Aspi, but it's diabolical. Like there's no threat. Like I don't feel like we're going to score anymore. But with James and Chilwell, when they made those overlaps, I thought we was going to score every time we attacked. And if it wasn't an overlap or something, Reece James was playing an inverted role and coming into midfield, caused chaos. You know what I mean? Like, it was just... I don't know. But anyway, more positive news. Tuchel's won the Best of Manager awards. And Emma Hayes did as well. So that's madness.
That is great. Although, a bit confused about the Emma Hayes one. I love Emma Hayes, but...
I think the
Chelsea women's team didn't even make it out of the group stage of the Champions League this season.
I think the Barca manager won it, right? The Champions League, so people were surprised.
Yeah. And obviously their domestic league as well. But it's.
I just wanted to quickly say, mate, on just last thing on the attacking thing. I think it comes down to the recruitment's poor as well. In terms of we've got players with potential. We need like a balance of potential and finished article, but all we've got is potential. Like there's no finished article, which is why I've got so much inconsistency at the top end of the pitch. There's no players that are actually a finished article that we sign in an attacking position. Obviously, Lukaku is finished article, but I mean, Hudson-Odoi is not finished article. Neither is Mason Mount, nor is Ziyech, Havertz, or Ziyech maybe, but he's not good enough. But Havertz, Werner, etc. They're not finished articles. That the combinations at the top end of the pitch is the balance is wrong for me in terms of between experience and like, you know, young potential. And, you know, that's why we need to this summer address like getting more experienced players in terms of like, you know, being a finished article. You were talking about Raheem Sterling. finished article, but like players like Pulisic and stuff, it's like and Havertz and Werner, it's all inconsistent. It's all potential. They're young players. So I just think the recruitment hasn't been right in the attacking areas, and they're all, they don't all contribute well to the current system we're playing in. So I just think we need to look in the summer at recruiting better in those forward positions, and instead of bringing in young players with potential, we need to bring in more finished articles.
But we did that with Lukaku, and that so far hasn't worked either, which is what I fear will kind of scare the board of doing that again, because the more finished article the player is, the more expensive he is.
Yeah, but I'd rather spend the money and get a finished article than have the same problems we're having over and over again, because we keep buying young players with potential and they don't deliver.
It is true. I will put it to you in a second, Clutch, because I know you want to say something about this whole conversation. I just quickly want to react to this comment here by Malik saying, even if you bring the best striker in the world, it won't work with Tuchel's system. So is that why he made a Mainz striker score more than 20 goals in a season? And is that why he made Aubameyang the best Aubameyang ever was? Like, yeah, he had some good seasons at Arsenal, but nowhere near as good as he was at Dortmund. Sure, Bundesliga tax, fair, I'll let you have it. But at the time, he was only in the Bundesliga, so what's he going to do about that? And at PSG, I mean, Mbappe is just great by himself, So I'm not sure how much credit I can give Tuchel for Mbappe, but Mbappe did certainly take a next step in his career and in his ability when Tuchel was the manager. Not saying he hasn't even got better, arguably now, because he's literally carrying the whole team by himself these days. But still, I put it to you, Clutch, and I'll just quickly talk about like them as individuals. Like, what are they good at? And are they good at enough things? Because Pulisic, first example, usually, not maybe the last few weeks, but usually good at dribbling, good movement, good finisher. But when I say finisher, not like he's not going to score a screamer from 25 yards, but he's going to get into the right positions and get his goals. Do you know what I mean? Callum Hudson-Odoi, good dribbler, in my opinion, not as good as Pulisic, just because I don't think he's quite as agile, personally. I think Pice would probably disagree with that, but at least my opinion from what I've seen so far.
What did you say, Laurenz?
Maybe different before the Achilles injury, but since then. Sorry,
Laurenz, what did you say?
I said that I think Pulisic's a better dribbler than Callum. Not right now, because both of them have been poor, especially Pulisic. In terms of actual what they can do, I think Pulisic's better. Anyway, Callum's a good creator. Like, obviously, we've discussed plenty of times. He can do that. Finishing, not so great. Movement, not so great. Work rate, not so great. Do you know what I mean? Then you go to Kai Havertz. Movement, fantastic. Hold up play, meh. Heading ability, good for how slim he is, but for how tall he is, average. Finishing, average. Passing, doesn't really pass much when he plays for us, in honesty, but he should be better than he is. Let's get to the next one. Hakim Ziyech. Weak foot, doesn't exist. Left foot, great, but so dependent on the left foot that it makes it too easy to defend the left foot. And the percentage of how often he gets a pass and a shot right compared to how often he gets them wrong is, unfortunately, since he's been at Chelsea, not being quite high enough. And who am I missing? Timo Werner. Well, he can run quick. That's it. Okay, no, I'll be harsh. He also has good movement, but when you have as bad a first touch as he does, as bad a second touch as he does, and as bad a finish as he does, and as bad as decision-making as Timo Werner does, then all the movement in the world is pointless. As we've seen last season by him missing literally from standing on the goal line. So, that's a special feat that I've never seen any other player in world football achieve. I mean, it might have happened, but then I haven't seen it. So now I've talked you through a few. Maybe I forgot one, but all of these players had like 1, 2, or 3 strengths. Is that enough? Because look at Salah. Is he the best dribbler in the world? No. But is he good at dribbling? Yes. Is he good at finishing? Yes. Is he strong? Yes. Can he play a good ball? Yes. Look at his outside of the boot pass against Man United a few weeks ago in the season. When was the last time we've seen a Chelsea player play a pass like that? Bloody Frank Lampard, when they did it for, well, probably Martens-esque, but that kind of outside of the boot pass, the last time I saw that was Frank Lampard for Didier Drogba in like 09-10. Do you know what I mean? Like, how long ago that was since I've seen anyone do that? Like, Salah is all of that in one. And I'm not saying we all have to be as good as Salah, or all of our players have to be as good as Salah, because obviously, no, I didn't forget about Mount, because I'm excluding Mount from this conversation because he's one not forward, two, the only one that is somewhat consistent anyway. And yes, you can say Mount hasn't been good enough. And he probably hasn't been. But has he still been better than all of the other ones combined? Yes, for 1,000,000%. I mean, he has 12 goal contributions just by himself, man. And Havertz, Lukaku, and Ziyech together have 11. Like, so don't be telling me about Mount hasn't been good enough. Like, do you know what I mean? But still, clutch. I mean, you said some of them are good enough. Maybe that's why I explained it so much in like more detail earlier. When I said not good enough, I didn't mean not good enough to play for us or to be here. That's not what I meant. I meant just good enough to challenge City. And before I go to you, Clutch, ladies and gentlemen, over 200 people watching. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. Let's get to 13K today. We're like 40 subs or something away. So let's get that done. Everybody subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that big red subscribe button for me. Let's get to 13K. But we're also on the road to 15,000 subscribers. So, every one of you that's new, hit that big red subscribe button, like I said, and smash the like button for me. It really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. But Clutch, after what I just said, do you see what I mean? Like each of them has one or two strengths. Is one or two strengths enough? Maybe three on some occasion.
I think it is good enough if it's consistent. The problem is consistency. That is the biggest problem we have. I agree with pretty much everything that everyone said here. I know me and Pius have talked about this quite a bit on Twitter, and we have disagreements here and there about it. But for me, I think that you can't just. I think it's easy to say the forwards aren't good enough. I think that's the easiest solution in the world because there is a lot more that goes into this than just that. There's the board problem. There's Tuchel not getting it right at times. Like I don't expect that he should have played City a different way because I mean we couldn't have gone out there with the four at the back. But at this point, like we know Chilwell and James are out. They are integral to the back three system. Without them, it doesn't work. Unless you're playing a team that's just not good. That's it. So for me, you have to switch that up. It has to change. You got to take away the wingbacks at that point. Because they're not helping you. Alonso isn't helping you. He's hurting you more than he's ever helping you. Aspie's not getting up the pitch. Sure, he's doing well defensively, but he's not providing you any sort of offensive threat. So now you're going to ask Alonso, who, let's be honest, unless he's in the box, nobody's going to go after him. He's not worth defending. He's not going to put in a great cross maybe once out of 10 times. Aspie's not going to get up there to put in a cross. So you're leaving three forwards, and maybe Kovacic is going to get up there. Sometimes Conte gets up there. But you're asking three forwards to go up against four defenders. It's not going to work, especially against great defenders. That's just not going to work. So the system isn't working for our forwards right now. We've seen that over the last year. It works better when you have Chilwell and James. So now you go to, are these players good enough? Consistency-wise, no, none of them have been consistent. But this year, we're playing so many games that we're always flip-flopping. Everything, you're not, like if you look at Liverpool, you're pretty much getting the same front three every time. Maybe you interchange Jota with one of the three sometimes every once in a while, or Firmino every once in a while.
But they play the same amount of games as we do.
Yeah. What's that say about
and they still stick to the same players and we don't.
But why is that? Because we have more players. We have a lot more players that are good.
I'm asking you the question, essentially.
So, I mean, we have a lot more players that want to play and be good. I mean, every one of these players could probably be a starter on another team. Now, I'm not saying high-level teams. I'm not saying that. But they would be a starter. Most Premier League teams, not named the like top six, probably. Most of our forwards would be starters. I would pretty much guarantee that. But
for anyone outside the top six, you say?
Top 5, top 6. Somewhere.
Yeah, but you'd bloody expect so with Chelsea Football Club.
That's the point, though. That's the point. And I said this a while ago that depth is going to be a problem because everybody's going to want to play. So you're going to have to accommodate them. At some point, consistency is only going to come when you play people consistently, right? So, I mean, I think like Pius touched on it on Twitter earlier, the best we've looked was when we had a consistent run of forwards, which would be Havertz, Cho, and Mount. But that's because they had like 7 games together. So, of course, they're going to look better. Of course, that's how it's going to work. And I think the problem that we're seeing is we're kind of combining all these problems that we're having and trying to find one simple solution when it's not a simple solution. It's a gigantic problem with many different solutions. If we go buy Hazard back, it's not going to change the problem. We're going to have the same problem. It's not going to, sure, we might get a better couple games out of him. Sure, but I think there's a bigger problem than that. And we can't always play all the players, right? So I think changing, especially tomorrow, because I'm going to go for a back 4 tomorrow. I'm not doing a back 3. I think there's a lot of problems because you were talking about strengths and weaknesses. I texted my friend last night about, like, I said, for all of our forwards, give me the strengths and weaknesses of each one. And you pretty much echoed the exact same thing he said. If you look at City, right? City have every player is not a specialist, pretty much. And to Charlie's point, Raheem Sterling was not good at Liverpool. He became good under Pep. So that's a little bit different kind of conversation. But if you look at all of them, they're all
Sorry,
able
what
to
did you just say about Sterling?
I said he wasn't that good at Liverpool.
I mean, he was good enough to be cost 50 million at 19.
We got a lot better under.
No, of course he got better, but he was still good.
But I would probably say,
Do you know what I mean?
look at,
Messi's better now than he was at 17, but he was still good at 17. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, fair enough. But if you look at them, I think City plays the same system, and every one of their players are not specialists. Our players are specialists. They're good at what they do. They're not good at everything all around. City can have Kevin De Bruyne step up in the midfield. He still does his Kevin De Bruyne stuff, but he still can do it. You have Foden who goes all around. Like I said when we were previewing it the other day against City, every one of those 6 players can interchange. We've seen Gundogan play CDM. We've seen Gundogan play false 9. We've seen him play out on the right. I mean, it's hard to say that it's just one problem for me. I don't think it's just our forwards aren't good enough. I think there is a
No, of course not. But the question isn't like what's our problem. The question is just because of course, and there's no debating that as a team we struggle without Chilean and Reece James. Obviously, I think that's been made pretty obvious by the last few weeks since they've been both out injured. Like arguably, even just Reece wasn't enough, and that's not because Reece isn't good enough, but just because we're then so top heavy on one side that already makes that side more difficult to function in and of itself. So just missing one of them is already almost enough of a problem, let alone both. But still, that doesn't take away from the fact that, I mean, you said that there when we had like a few games of the same players. But why did we have a few games of the same players? Because Callum actually started to play well. Lukaku was injured, so we basically and Timo wasn't available at the time either, I don't think. So it was literally only Havertz that we had anyway. And Mount is the only one that consistently plays usually regardless, right? So we were forced into that, and then Callum all of a sudden stopped playing well. Like there needs then, because I get the whole point, like he switches it around too much. But would you be happier if someone drops 2 games was really bad and he just keeps playing? Like think of the reaction of the fans. What that would be if someone plays badly twice, 3 times in a row and still keeps playing. Like think back to when we last did that. The last occasion where I can really remember that is probably the season Jose got sacked. And all of us were livid that he kept starting Ivanovic, even though every week he was dog shit. So it isn't just like, I understand what you're saying, and you need to start consistently to perform consistently. I get that. But you also need to perform at any sort of acceptable level to keep your spot. Because if someone just keeps their spot, even though they play shit, first of all, that causes dressing room problems because they're like, boss, he's playing shit the last 3 games and you still keep picking him. What's that about? I'm trying my hardest here in training and I still don't get a chance. How's that fair? So that causes problems in and of itself. And also, a player that keeps playing badly doesn't help us win games either, does he? So should that player keep starting? And that brings us back to, are they good enough? Because players that perform consistently stay in the side because they're good enough. And then they get that extra bonus of because they're good enough and perform to at least an acceptable level, like Mason Mount. He doesn't always play great, but there's 9 times out of 10, he's at an acceptable level, good enough to keep playing. And that's why he has the highest goal output and goal contribution of all the players. But because the other players just, like, I think it was Charlie, like once every 4 games, they have a good game. Then they have an average game, maybe another average game, but then a shit game. And then another shit game. And then maybe an average game again. And then 6, 7, 8 games later, they might have another good game. But that in itself is the problem, because I don't think it's as easy as saying, if they all just played all the time, then it would be great. Because Timo Werner played all the time under Frank Lampard and Thomas Tuchel, never became great. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I don't.
All of them have had periods where they've played loads of games and still never became great. Like, when does that point happen where it's like, this is now enough games to say you've had the chance to consistently play and you're still not good enough? Like, how many games does that need to be in your head?
No, I agree. My point overall is it's not one thing over the other, right? So it's not like consistency is a problem, not only because players aren't playing in, like, I guess their preferred positions or whatever. I think it's more of we have to rotate. I mean, that we just know that that's the fact that we have to do. So at that point, yes, consistency comes from you have to sometimes kind of step it up at points, even when you're tired and whatnot. But I think it's not just as simple as, yeah, if you play all of them at the same time, it's going to work. There's a system problem that's not working for the forwards. That hasn't worked since Thomas Tuchel's been here. There's a consistency problem, whether it be from they're not playing in the preferred position, they're not playing enough, they're not playing. It's a bundle of things. I'm not saying it's one thing or other. I'm just saying it's easier. I think it's too easy to say like the players themselves are just not good enough. Maybe sure for a system. And to a degree, I agree with what Charlie said. You need to bring in proven players. But at the same time, I think all these guys are really young, and we're kind of expecting these young guys to be the finished product when we know that was never going to be the thing that happened.
That's true, but we still kind of all were trying to win the league. So if we can't expect that from these young players, then we should have never even wanted to win the league, to be honest.
True, but we always want to win the league.
No,
now, is it more unrealistic for our side that we maybe
then we need to just accept from the get-go at the moment we don't have the facilities to do so.
Yeah, at the same time, like maybe it's just us thinking these players are a lot better. Hey, maybe I think these players are a lot better than I think they are, or than they actually are. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I kind of see it a little bit different because I have a lot more expectations, or because it's like these players don't just. Because we've seen each one of these players have great moments, like where they've just taken over games and they've done things. So for me, it's kind of like, I think at the peak they're good enough, but I don't know the solution if it's...
No, again, that's part of the problem, the whole solution. And what I was aiming at when I listed, like, what do all of these players, what strengths do they have? The problem, and I let Tyson, Charlie, if they want to add something to the whole discussion before we get actually on to talking about the Brighton game in terms of the team. What I was kind of getting at is in terms of all having individual strengths. If you're not good at that many different things, that makes it much easier for the opponent to defend you. Because if you, for example, have a very bad weak foot, already easier to defend because all the defender has to do is show you on your weak foot, and he's already took 90% of the threat that the player, poses, took it out of the game with just showing him onto his weak foot. And, any half-decent manager knows how to show a player onto his weak foot. Sure, there's players that are as great as Ian Robben, that even though they have one of the worst weak feet we've ever seen, are still great. Also, a little bit of Bundesliga tax, by the time towards the end of his career, but sure. No disrespect to Ian Robben, of course. But what I'm trying to say is, Pulisic's great at dribbling, but then because he's not that great at too many other things, the players just stop him from dribbling, and then he doesn't have a thing to fall back on. Hazard could dribble, Hazard could pass, Hazard could shoot. The three biggest things you can do as a forward, except being tall and heading, but you can't head because he's not tall enough, right? And you basically have that same issue for all of our forwards. So, and that's partly, in my opinion, is also why we switched them. Because depending on opposition, we need different strengths. And because we have no forwards with enough different strengths, we need to constantly switch them to use the forward with the strength that could work against this opposition, which is also, in my opinion, why they can't consistently keep playing. Pice, do you want to add something to that? Because I'm really trying not to, because of course, like I said, we've all agreed that the wing backs are part of the problem right now, right? But I don't want to, because that's too easy. It's almost like we've given that excuse to the forwards for God knows how long now. And I'm not saying I want to now only blame the forwards, but I wanted to use this stream to just talk about them without always giving them that excuse. That's what I'm trying to get at. So anything you would like to add to that, Pice, or shall we move on to Brighton?
I mean, it's interesting because I get that you want to, obviously, ideally start sort of a front three or at least two of them that play regularly. I mean, obviously, Mount plays quite a lot. The only player I remember that had a consistent run was Hudson-Odoi. I think he had like 8 games or 7-8 games on the left or something like that. And then he got taken out, and I was just like, if you look at our 3 biggest performances, attacking-wise this season, I was saying this to Clutch earlier, and he agreed, but he also added in Liverpool. I said Norwich, Juventus, and who was the other one? Can't even remember now on my own tweet.
You said Leicester.
Leicester. Yeah. All three of those, two out of three of those games had Havertz and Mount, and all three of them had Hudson-Odoi on the left. Now, personally, I mean, it's not a lot to pick off, but those 3 games we were brilliant. And I know one's Norwich, whatever, but you know, those 3 games we were brilliant. And I mean, like I have to think, if we didn't have so many forwards, would we be more consistent because those players would play a lot more? Like I don't know. It's a lot of chopping and changing, and it's hard for Tuchel because he has to keep people happy. That's the hard problem, you know. He's got to try and use the squad balance right, and I mean, it's not really difficult for him at the moment. You know, no one's really nailed down a consistent spot. I mean, he could put out anything tomorrow, and I don't think we would care. We just want to win the game. So, yeah, we'll see. Everyone has their own preference, right? So, you know, it's different. Like Pulisic on the left. I prefer Hudson-Odoi on the left. You know, some want Ziyech playing because of creativity or whatever. Some want Lukaku still, you know. Some want Havertz, but yeah, it's difficult because I think that's what Tuchel's thinking as well. That Tuchel's obviously kind of similar to us, you know. He's kind of got all those fans' minds in his head and thinking, right, like you said, Laurenz, who's actually going to be better for this particular game? And you know, sometimes that can be a problem because there's no consistency, and you know, even the players he chooses for a particular game, which ideally look good on paper, sometimes then they don't perform. So it's like, well, what do you do? Like, you know what I mean? You can easily say play Werner against Man City because they had a high line. Okay, well, what happens if you started Werner and he was absolutely trash? Like, what do you do then? It sounds good on paper.
Exactly.
But you know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, and can I just add something to that, and then you can continue? I think that the only reason it's not working is because they're not playing consistently together. I think the only reason they're saying that is because they're not. And it's the same thing as when after the game, after City, we were like, oh, Tuchel got it wrong, should have started Pulisic and Ziyech. But if he started Mount and Werner and they were shit, we would have said, shouldn't have started Mount and Werner. Like, only because we haven't seen the other option do we think the other option would have been better.
Bro,
and there's no way of knowing whether if they all played consistently that they would actually. We don't know because we haven't had that opportunity. And Wyman said in the chat as well. Also, reason is injuries, of course, but also the positive Rona test. Havertz had it. Pulisic had it at some point. Lukaku had it. Like, yeah, you can have a go at the manager, but some of these decisions are taken out of his hand in terms of, can I play the same players all the time? Do you know what I mean? But sorry, Pice, I interrupted you. Go on.
No, we would have said something that I think would have happened is we would have said, well, we should have played Ziyech because of the through balls we had on the counter attacks when we had. Yeah. But I mean, then you look at the game. I mean, Ziyech had a perfect chance to play Lukaku through, and he fucking put it straight through to Edison. He overhit the pass. So, you know, whatever solutions you want to come up with after the game, it's like, well, you know, if buts and maybe, there's no guarantees they would have done anything different to me. I mean. The only thing that I get at Tuchel for the weekend was not changing anything at half time because I mean, for me, you bring Mount on at half time, and you take Havertz,
would have been almost enough.
Yeah, but ideally you bring on Mount and Havertz, and I think the whole game changes because I think Havertz would have held the ball up better. I think he would have found better spaces. I think Mount would have kept the ball better, and he definitely has the pace. You know what I mean? He's better at holding the ball than Ziyech did. Ziyech lost the ball every single time. You know, you would have had the corner taker being Mount. He gets a lot of assists off corners. It's little things that Tuchel could have done on the weekend, but that game's over now, and we must correct things tomorrow night in game. I'm not talking about starting because you could throw any starting lineup out there. For me at the moment, it's more about how does Tuchel and the players react in game. So what I mean by that is by half-time tomorrow, if we are still playing crap, whatever attack we put out, we're 0-0 or, you know, maybe even it's 1-0 to Brighton, you have to change that front three. You can't leave it 65 minutes. You can't. You know, that's what I keep telling about. There's too much little moments with this team, you know, in attack. We see little moments when certain players come on, like Aston Villa, Lukaku, Hudson-Odoi came on. Saw that link up, but little moments. They haven't played together much since. You know what I mean? It's like it's really difficult because I don't even know why. Because there's no consistent theme. Like it's all just muddled. You know what I mean? It's a different thing every game, and it's a different performance every game from the attackers. You know what I mean? Like even on the weekend, you remember the cross Hudson-Odoi? He had the cross and he put it straight out. I was like, he would not do, on other games. He would have not crossed it on his left foot. He would have took a touch, crossed it back on his right. It's just like those little things. Like you don't know what you're going to get.
That almost brings me back to the whole conversation. Good enough. Not good enough of a weak foot, so that usually he has to take that extra touch, which slows the whole attack down.
Like you said, they've got attributes, but not any like. I can't point to one of our attackers and be like, "Wow, he's the complete," or "He's nearly the complete package." Not even Mount. Mount doesn't have the vision yet. Sometimes he keeps his head down too much before passing. You know what I mean? He's not the complete package. You know, sometimes his passing's a bit off. A lot of the time it's good, but sometimes it's off. You know what I mean? Like it's really difficult. Ziyech, as you've already explained, like he only really has a left foot. He doesn't have pace. He's not a dribbler. He's not direct. That's why for me he suits more of, as you saw Spurs. He was kind of obviously he played on the right and obviously right wing back and sort of right attacking mid. But do you see how much he was drifting centrally as well? He looked more dangerous there, where he could just play it out wide and kind of be free in the middle, not restricted out on the wing, you know, all the time. You're talking about Pulisic, has had great dribbling, not lately. Is he? This is another thing I want to talk about Pulisic as well. Is he as quick as we think he is? Because like I think
at the moment, quick. No, I agree.
I think he's quick,
slow these days.
Yeah,
but
I
even
think he's
Werner
quick.
Doesn't look as quick as he used to. I think.
No, I don't think he is as quick as he used. Like, he's not as explosive as he used to be. I don't even think so. Like under Lampard, I thought Pulisic was very, very explosive. Especially, you know what, and you know the reason why so many fans said he was like Hazard is because when he was backed up against a defender, he used to, when the ball was fizzed into him, he'd either take a touch and turn really quickly, or he would scan around him and turn before the player even could get touch tight to him. You know what I mean? Like he knew he was spinning in and out of players. He was brilliant. But over the last sort of few months, like every time he receives the ball, it's like he has no confidence, or he just getting shoved off. He loses
maybe
it.
It's the ankle injury.
I don't know. It could be. Hazard's like that now, bro. It could be the injuries, and that's what I say. Like when I say we have to think about, I'm not just going on at Pulisic here, but we're on Pulisic, so I will say we have to think about the future because he's so injury prone, and the fact is that he just doesn't look half the player he was a couple of years ago, and it's worrying because he's still young. Like, you know what I mean? Even with Hudson-Odoi, he's not as like he's really direct, but he's not, as you said, he doesn't take on as many dribbles anymore. That could be due to his injury. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things that's wrong with these attackers, man. Like, it really is. It's quite worrying.
Because even though we spoke so much at the beginning, I'll go to you with this now, or with the next Charlie, before we move on, because I know you don't actually have that long anyway. I haven't even talked about Lukaku. Like, everyone keeps telling me, we're using, or not everyone, but some people keep saying, we're using Lukaku wrong and this and that, and, you know, we need to use him so he can use the right channel, he can run, and, you know, he's better that way. But what if the opponent sits too deep to play runs and play on the counter? Does that mean if that's what happens, he's just not good enough then? Because that's what people are basically telling me. Because then what will he ever do against Burnley and Newcastle, who never play as high enough of a line to get him to run? So is he then just not it? Because, and Verdi will appreciate the donation a lot, obviously, and he says the solution may be a change of formation. But for me, that debate is the same thing as I just said. When that guy plays and he's bad, we say, if only we would have played that guy. Or it's the same as, if only they would play more games in a row, then they would be better. It's pure speculation because we played 2 games with that back four against Spurs. And yeah, we looked good, especially in the first leg. But did we actually create a lot of chances? We scored 1 goal. And the second goal was the silliest own goal, and none of our players were even anywhere near. And that wasn't even one of those games where we missed loads of sitters. But still, we all thought we looked better. But did we? And then in the second leg against Spurs, we played that formation again. Did we look better? Like, I'm not saying we can't be better in a different formation, but to say if only we change formation, everything would be solved is very silly, because that's not how football works. And I mean, Thomas Tuchel knows football better than any of us do, and multiple managers. All of these managers know football better than any of us do. And they keep saying, whenever someone says, should you change formation to, and they're like, no, the formation is not the problem. We just need to play in the formation better. And that's it for me, Charlie. Anything you would like to add, or shall we move on to talking about the Brighton?
I was just going to say, it's not as simple as changing the formation. Do you think it was that easy that we'd still be playing 3 at the back? Well, of course we wouldn't. If that was a simple answer, we would have switched the formation. As you said, it was nice to see the 4-2-2. Let's be honest, though. It was very much needs must due to lack of defensive personnel. And Spurs were dog shit. They were awful. That also we played quite well, but that flattered us, and it made us look much better. And then everyone gets excited. Oh yeah, we've done the 4-2-2 formation. Oh, this looks good. This is the answer. But in reality, as you touched on, we get a Havertz goal from close range, and it's a ridiculous own goal. Lukaku has an opportunity with a header, but other than that, we still didn't create much in that system either. So that isn't the answer. I think the answer, as annoying as it is just I think we just need to keep playing a set front three and just see what happens. Because at the end of the day, we've tried so many options and none of them work. So is this conversation, it doesn't have a right answer because none of the
that's
options.
What I'm getting at, because Global keeps saying in the chat, don't play 7 defenders. But our defenders are good.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know what I mean?
The
wing backs are better at attacking than all of our attackers.
I mean, I think I've seen something that the defenders have almost scored as many goals as the attackers this season for us. The problem's not playing 5 defenders. The problem is the attackers don't perform on a consistent level. So I don't think it's anything to do with the formation. It's just the fact that we need to somehow find a way to score goals. And I don't know what the answer is, because we've tried so many different things. We've tried all the possible different combinations at the top end of the pitch. We could maybe try 2 up top a little bit more. But at the end of the day, when we've tried these things, it doesn't seem to make a difference. I don't look at one combination in that front three and think, oh, that's definitely the answer. It might be the answer for a couple of games, and then they have a third game and they're shit, and then everyone's like, oh, we need to switch it up and try someone different. So I don't know what the answer is, and I think that is probably the big problem. I think it's Tuchel's biggest problem, that he doesn't actually know what his best front three is, and I don't blame him for that, because it's so inconsistent. What is our best front three? I don't think anyone knows.
There isn't. That's the problem. That's why Tuchel doesn't play a set front three. As I said, the time that Hudson-Odoi played 6-7 games, or 8 games, I think it was, at left forward, Tuchel kept coming out and saying, yeah, it's because he deserves it. But then he came out the team. I can't remember which game it was and why he came out, but it was just weird. But still,
probably because no player can play 15 games every 3 days in a row. So at some point, you will have to.
Yeah, but Laurenz, he never he's not starting anymore though. I don't get it, man. It's annoying.
Yeah, he hasn't started since his shock against Brighton, but obviously his run was much longer ago.
That's what I mean. That's the only example I can give you this season of, unless I'm wrong, an attacker playing that amount of games in a row. Maybe Mount has, but I don't know. It's frustrating, but it's also understandable as well.
It is. It definitely is. Let's talk about Brighton tomorrow. Obviously, we recently played them at Stamford Bridge and drew 1-0 against them, which wasn't fantastic. They even had a higher, even though they scored a late equaliser in the 91st minute through Danny Welbeck, they actually had a higher expected goals stat than we did. We had 0.70 and they had 0.87. So, that really wasn't a great game. We even had less possession than Brighton at Stamford Bridge. So I've raised this up now as a back four with this 4-2-2, which we will probably still defend in a back three but I don't know if that's better. I know still Pi slightly disagrees, but against Spurs in the second leg, we was open like anything, susceptible to counterattacks. The way Brighton play, I'm honestly going to be a bit scared of it with a back four, but I don't know. I just feel like with the players that we currently have, a bit like what we touched on earlier, with the current wing-backs, our wing-back system isn't great. With Chile and Reece James, play the 3-4-3 all the bloody hell you want, because with those two, we're fantastic. But without them, maybe we're better off in a different shape, because Aspie's better as a right back than a right wing-back. Alonso is worse as a left back than this is a left wing-back, but he isn't good enough as a left wing-back either to make a difference. So we might as well play bloody Malong Sarr left back. What's the difference, really? in my opinion, we're not talking about predicted 11s here, but the only thing I'm sure about, really, is that Kepa plays in goal. If Rudiger plays one of the centre-back positions, I mean, Christensen is still out with the Rona. Won't be back by now. Thiago Silva, we have, right? But Thiago Silva was already rushed for City, so can he play again? I don't know. Chalobah is still out. No journalist has still asked the question, how much longer is he going to be out for? I want to slap them every time I see a press conference. I'm like, they ask team news, and he's like, oh, no one's back. Ask how long they're out for, man. Like, Chalobah is a simple hamstring injury. How much longer is he going to be out for? Please tell me, for the love of God. And then the only other one is Aspie, who's not going to play centre-back in the back four, right? So with that now said, and if theoretically Sarr plays here, does seeing that and worrying about Thiago Silva tell us we can't even play a back four? Pice?
I mean, the one thing I'll say, Lawrence, do you remember when we was doing predicted 11s like a few weeks ago, and there was like a span of games where Silva played like 3 games in like 7 days or something stupid, and we was like, how on earth has he just done
but then
that?
He didn't obviously come back from the Rona.
Yeah, but like he still played. Like there was one game where it was kind of similar to now, where we had like 2 days rest or something, and he still played. So I mean, you kind of have to, because and I agree, I think he will go back for tomorrow. I think we kind of have to, even though, as you said, susceptible to counter attacks, but still, I mean, I don't think we're going to bloody score otherwise. And if you play Lukaku up front on his own, then it's going to be the same thing. It's not going to work with these guys. So I think we have to play a back four, and I agree. It probably will be. It probably will be that because I mean, by the way, I mean Kennedy's training. So could you imagine that? That would be quite something. But no, I think it will be that. It will be that. I think
because if Thiago Silva can play, yes, but if he can't, let me just put him away.
The one thing I will say
in my opinion, we basically have to play this back three.
I don't want a back three tomorrow.
No, I don't want it either. But if Thiago can't play, we have to. There is literally no option.
Yeah, we have to play it. But you know what? The only time I want a back three is if Lukaku's not up top. If it's Havertz on his own, play a back three. If not, play a back four. I don't want Lukaku on his own up front in that three at the back. It actually stinks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know which would make it more interesting, whether we should figure out what to play if we don't have Thiago or if we just pretend we do, because we don't have time to do 2 different formations anymore.
I think pretend we do, because I'm pretty sure we're going to have him. If he's fine, Tuchel's going to play him, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, if he is, but we just don't know if he will be. I guess that makes it difficult. But yeah. Let's go with that he is fine. Let me ask the other boys before we move higher up the pitch. But, Pice has basically agreed with this back four. Obviously, then shifting still into the back 5. So this will have to be, whoever this guy is, will have to kind of fill in as left wing back in defensive shape, because Saab would then be, all right, let me explain it again to everyone. Even that, okay, so it needs to be the other way around. Rudiger needs to be right centre back. Thiago needs to be left centre back, so that we can then in defensive shape, because we will do that. Like, even if people think we shouldn't, we will anyway. So you can't do anything about it. And then we will obviously defend in that shape. So whoever the left 10 is, will need to come back to help out as a left wing back. Depending on how, it's like I said, Brighton had more of the ball than we did at Stamford Bridge. So who knows how that game, obviously at the AMX Stadium, is going to go tomorrow. But Clutch, this back 4 for you, would you go back 3 without Thiago? Would you go back 3 with Thiago?
If we don't have Thiago, then we're definitely going to have to go to a back 3. But
yeah,
I would probably say he's going to play, and I would go back 4, and this is a back 4.
I tell a lie, by the way. I just realized something. Theoretically, I'm not saying we should, but what we could do is, obviously, if we don't have Thiago, we can also play the back 4 of that, and then shift it around the other way. And then Alonso is the left wing back, Sarr left centre back, Rudiger centre back. Aspie comes then over from his right back position to be right centre back, and then this one needs to do that, like Ziyech did in the first leg against Spurs. So even if Thiago isn't fit, we can do a back 4, but then it means Alonso left back. So I'm not sure if any of us wants to even think about that. Sorry,
I'm worried as well. If we play a back 4, like it's kind of going head to head with Brighton, and they are, like, I'm not even joking you, they accumulate the most XG every single game. Like, I swear to God, they are so good on attack. Whether they score them all is different, but you know, if we play a back four and they get that space, I'm worried, man. I really am. Like, they're very good going forward. Potter's a great manager.
He is. He's a great manager. Still think United, if they wanted to be a little bit serious, they shouldn't have gone for Rangnick, but for Graham Potter, personally. But you know, he doesn't look as fancy. You know, especially when he was involved in that charity for the homeless people in Brighton, and he looked like he fit in way too well. But anyway, we have another super chat with Chelsea Boy 11 here. Why we sound so confused? The player's not good. Not sure what exactly you're trying to say, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, bro, but I appreciate the donation. If you want to elaborate, don't need to do another super chat. I will try to see you in the chat. But sorry, Clutch, did I cut you off there, by the way? Because please continue about the defense.
Nope, that is the one I would do. That exact one, that's what I have down.
Fair dues. And then for you, Charlie, back four, regardless of Thiago or not, or back four only if Thiago is fit?
I mean, personally, I'd probably play a 3, but that's probably not going to be that popular. But I mean, if it was going to be a 4, then that for me, that's what I'd go with. Alonso in a flat 4 for me is a no-go. So we play Sarr there, who did pretty well second leg, and then it gives us the ability to switch it up if we need to. But yeah, if we're going with a 4, then that's the most obvious 4 to play.
Fair dues. Let me go back to you, Clutch. Midfield 2, or double pivot, shall we say? Who's that this game? Obviously, last game we had Kova Kante. Now against Brighton, what shall we go with?
Kova Jorginho.
Kova Jorginho, yeah. You need to get closer to your mic, or something's weird again.
Oh, I don't know. I've probably got to get closer. Yeah, Kovacic and Jorginho. That's who I would go with. That'd be my 2 there.
Yeah, I can't lie. Like, obviously, people know I'm a big fan of Kova and Jorginho. But that combination in front of a back 4 does... it scares me a little bit. Because with a back 3 behind them, that's one thing. But with that... I don't know. I feel like we need...
That scares the shit out of me as well, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and also the whole thing of back 4 with Thiago, even if Thiago is fit to play, in a back 4, you run way more than a back 3. But let's stick with the back 4 now, just to make it a bit more interesting, because in a back 3,
the only other thing is...
What about Ruben? They could play Ruben. Is he fit?
Do. He is fit, but will he? No.
I think Saul starts over him these days, if I'm being completely honest.
Probably.
And I don't want to start Conte because I don't want to play him 2 games in a row like we always do and then have him get hurt. So that's the only reason I picked these 2. And if I don't pick these 2, then I got to put Saul in one of these 2 positions, which I guess could theoretically be okay, considering he's had decent runs, but I don't think Saul and Jorginho works. I think Kovacic and Jorginho works better than those 2.
I would honestly, I mean, even though I don't disagree with your sentiment of don't play Kante again just because he seemingly can't handle 2 games in a row, if we played that pivot, I think I would just change my opinion and say let's play a back 3, not a 4. Pice, how do you see it? Do you agree with Clutch, though, that Kante probably shouldn't play 2 games in a row?
I mean, it's sad that it's got to that state, but I kind of agree. Yeah, it's worrying because, you know, as much as I like Kovacic and Jorginho, I'm not going to lie to myself, we've seen them off the ball, defending transitions, it ain't good. There will be space. It's why I kind of think if we do this, it will be like a hell for leather game. You know, it might end up like a 3-2 or something if Chelsea actually can score that amount of goals in a game. Not sure if that's possible. Yeah, I don't know. I see Clutch's point, but yeah, I'm not sure. It's hard to say.
It's a tough one. But if we say we stick to this back 4, who would you then go for in your midfield? Would you just go for Kante anyway?
No. To be honest, I'd like to see Jorginho and Ruben actually, but I don't think that will happen. I think that could work quite nicely. But yeah, Kovacic is most likely to play. It's always hard predicting these 11s though, like, you know, with such short rest, because one, the journalists don't ask really the in-depth conditions. Like, you know, we don't really know. And 2, like, Tuchel could rotate and do anything, or he could just keep the same, or not the same team, but a similar team, you know. So It's hard. Are we doing this based on what we think he'll put out, or what we would
just,
put out?
no, just what you would like to see put out. Because, like you said, we don't know the physical conditions, so it's like super difficult to predict what Tuchel's gonna do.
It's interesting. Jorginho, Ruben could work because Jorginho could sit, Ruben could go forward. I think that'd be quite a nice balance. But then, you could have Kovacic, Ruben. Like it depends who, because we've seen Ruben be disciplined right before, and I'd like to see him get another start. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like he wasn't on his best form, but I do feel like he was doing okay in the pivot. Like I don't think he was.
Instead of who would you play him then? With Kovo or with Jorginho?
I'm gonna go Cover, and I think I'd bring Cover off the bench. I think that could be really useful later on. Yeah, because I mean we've got Spurs at the weekend, and you'd probably start. I mean, yeah, you would start Kovacic probably in that game. So I'll go with Jorginho and Ruben, but I don't think it will happen. I think it will be what we've got on the screen, or Kante again.
I can't even lie. I will go along with the back four now, but I've changed my mind. I do actually want to play back three, and I'll explain in a minute why. We're not there yet. Where my reason comes in. But Charlie, your midfield too. Would you play Kante regardless? Like even though we've learned to be scared whenever he plays 2 games in a row.
It's such a big risk, but then you almost feel like, can we actually get through this game without him playing in that midfield? Particularly if we're playing a back four.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally wouldn't risk it. We've got Spurs on the weekend, which is a massive game. And then obviously there's no games for a little bit after that. But yeah, I just think it's too much of a risk. And, history has shown us this season that if we try Kante in 2 games in quick succession, it doesn't end well. And I just don't think we want to be taking that risk when we have him on the treatment table again. So I would probably go with Kovacic and Jorginho, but if he thinks, Kova's played too many minutes recently, then as Pi said, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a Ruben alongside Jorginho with Kovacic perhaps to come off the bench or Kante. So yeah, I mean,
but would Ruben, and the same almost goes the same good question goes to you and Pies really. With Ruben and Jorginho would almost scare me more defensively than Kova and Jorginho. I can't lie, because I mean, people know I love Ruben more than anyone. But if there's one thing he's not great at is when he loses the ball running backwards. Like he does his defensive work. He's definitely got better, more disciplined, blah, blah, blah. But when he's dispossessed on the way forward, the turning back thing,
okay,
that's
so Laurenz, can I counter that? So would you rather prefer Ruben and Kovacic then, and let Ruben sit and let Kovacic drive forward in that case?
No, because then Jorginho is just better at that than Ruben anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
But you're like, but I do like...
Jorginho is, the problem is like, I'm just worried like one of them's going to get injured. Like, I'm just, okay, I don't know. Like, this is why I said we needed another.
I'm even tempted to say Saul, to be honest. To play Saul next to Jorginho. I can't even lie. But
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against it based on his previous performance. But again, I think I said after these good games, I was like, well, I don't know, because the next time we throw him in, is he really going to play like that again? Like he has the last 2 times? I don't know. Not sure. Yeah. Not sure if he can just turn a corner.
Becky really wants to know your opinion on João Felix, but not just João Felix. She keeps talking about, or he, whatever, unsure. They, shall we say, instead of Lukaku. Like, I'm not saying João Felix is awful, but João Felix instead of Lukaku as our number 9, big no.
I feel like this is some Twitter account that follows me, maybe on like their mum's burner or something. Apologies if you actually are a girl, but I've got a feeling, like I constantly get asked this on Twitter, like Felix, promote Felix prop and stuff. So, but if it is actually a Becky, then yeah, I mean, I guess like he is a good young player, but again, it's ironically he probably fit the system better than Lukaku. Let's be honest, but still, his goal record for me isn't
because
great.
One of the wide players in our 3-4-3, I wouldn't even have the biggest problem with João Felix, except that it would be way too expensive.
Put it this way, he's the kind of baller that I want at Chelsea again. Like he's the kind of player that I want. That sort of that flair style, really, really talented lad, to be honest. But yeah, I
That's
guess
true.
he's been held back a bit by Simeone a little bit as well. It's an interesting one. I mean,
For
he
sure.
signed for like 100 million or something, so he would never
Even
join
more, I think.
Chelsea. I don't think. Yeah,
But yeah.
100 and something million.
Let me just quickly read that out by Chelsea Boy from a super chat earlier. All I'm saying is some of our players, they're not good enough, can't make a simple pass. So sorry for Tuchel, but I hope we get our fans and board to back him because he's a genius. We are so lucky to have him. I completely agree with you, mate. Cheers for your input. Charlie, I know you need to head off in just half a second, so I would literally just give you the option. Just finish this off if you want, or if you even need to head off straight away, if obviously not.
No, I'll finish it. Yeah, we're sticking with this. For me, I'd have Mount on that right-hand side, and I would play Callum. I don't think he's going to play Ziyech and Pulisic again after they were both poor on Saturday. And up top, I'd go Havertz and Lukaku. I think Lukaku with Havertz alongside him could be much more productive rather than him up front. If it's gonna end up being a 1, I probably would try Havertz. He's not played for 2 games now, been unused sub. So I think I'd go with that front 2 or Havertz on his own if it ends up being a 3. Because I just think Lukaku, as much as I want him to do well, and I've backed him. I don't think any of that front 3 deserves a start after the dross that they served up on Saturday. So I think some fresh impetus could make a difference. But yeah, that's what I'd go with. But as we know, mate, it could end up being anything.
Yeah, no, it definitely could be. Charlie, I do know you need to head off, so appreciate you for tuning in, especially after just coming back from work. Have a good day. Everybody subscribe to this channel called The Blues Brothers. Link is down in the description. And I'll chat to you soon, mate.
Yeah, cheers. Nice one, lads. Enjoy the rest of the stream. Thanks.
Take care, bro. Take care. Cheers.
See you, bro.
I do apologize, by the way, boys, that I'm making that these streams just keep dragging and end up much longer than I initially planned them to be. Clutch. Let's not do the strike straight away. Just the 2 10s if we were to play this formation. Would you agree on Mason and Hudson-Odoi?
Yes, this is the 2 that I have down.
That's the 2 you have done. You can elaborate, mate. You can elaborate.
Well, I have Mount on the right and I have Callum up on the left because I think, like we said earlier, he's going to be able to switch back into that left wing back role if he needs to. But I think I have a bigger reason. It's going to be an out there suggestion, but I'm going to talk about it later with the forwards. But I think Callum has the ability on that left, and I think I have a solution that we can kind of get both good out of both players here, but I'll talk about that later. I'll let Pius talk about the other stuff.
I mean, I heard everything you said now, but you really need to keep talking loudly. I don't know why. Otherwise, I don't know why. Towards the end of your sentence, you always get very quiet. At the start of it, you're fine.
I have zero idea why that is. I'll have to fix it here in a second. But yeah, I would have Callum on the left because I have a player. I'm not going to play Lukaku tomorrow, so I'll have Havertz on the right up there, but I'll let Pius talk about his back too before I get to it because my shot's going to be a little bit out there.
Fair dues, no issues. Pius, then for you, Mount and Hudson-Odoi in these positions as well, or would you go for someone different?
Yeah, spot on. I think that's the same two I had actually. Think it'll work well.
See, for me, and Mount, unfortunately, in this formation, Mount has had
actually. That's true. I was going to say he's had some bad games on that position.
But I need him in the team anyway, which is why I changed my mind and I want to play a back 3. Because I need Mount in the team, but I don't want him in this position in the team. So either play him this 4-striker role. I don't think he'd be great there, but better than here, I think. Or more impactful, shall we say. But yeah, I'm not sure about this. But Pies, if it wouldn't be Mount here for those reasons, would that lead you to change the formation, or would that lead you to drop Mount, or would that lead you to play Mount up here? Which of those 3 options would that be?
I would actually have to play Ziyech, I think, because he played so well in that role against Spurs, and he doesn't deserve to start.
I know we had that conversation last game already, but that wouldn't happen if Aspie behind him is the wing back now. Kind of wing back, because then Ziyech wouldn't stay as deep as what made him so great against Spurs.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Hey, I'm not telling you you're not allowed to pick it. I'm just saying why I would have a worry with that.
No, I get your point. It's difficult. I'm looking at Mount up front. It just looks so weird. But I don't know. Like, it could kind of work with Lukaku, because the one thing with Mount is I know he'll actually try and, he'll constantly try and lay off him, and it could be something. But then again,
he could just easily drop and almost create a 4-2-3-1 very comfortably.
Yeah, then I'm looking at Havertz out there, and I'm just like, I'd rather probably switch. I'd probably rather then switch Hudson-Odoi and Havertz. So Havertz has got the left foot.
And then Havertz needs to do wing back role or not?
That's another thing. Yeah, you're right.
Would it then be Pulisic and Callum for you, like potentially?
Right. Yeah, this is hard. This is hard because of the tactical implication it has. It might have to be, because at least then he has known the wing back responsibilities. But I don't want Pulisic to play. I think he's been crap. So it's like, what do we do? This is the problem.
Yeah.
I
could also debate Pulisic here. I have a feeling that that's what Clutch is going to say. And I don't think it would be awful, to be perfectly honest with you. But
every time he's played up there, he's just looks so arse, man.
He's only ever played up there by himself, though. Never in a two, to be fair to him.
That is true, but then again, like Pulisic and Lukaku, I don't have any confidence in those two finishing any chances. That's the problems.
Lukaku needs some time on the bench. It's Havertz. I need Havertz up there.
Yeah,
it is Pulisic who I do have on that left, because I think Callum and Pulisic have a really good understanding with each other, and it finally allows them to be on the same side, or their stronger side. And you can even interchange. If Pulisic wants to go wide, Callum can come inside. If Callum wants to go wide, Pulisic can come inside. You can interchange that position so easily.
Do that essentially.
No, like Callum would come like more wide, Pulisic would stay middle, Pulisic would go wide, Callum would come inside. You could have that interchanging, and that would actually
but as in the main formation, and then these two can switch.
Yes.
Yeah. It is a shout. It is a shout. I mean, I don't really know what we should do about that, Rob, but both Charlie and Clutch went for this, so let's just leave this on screen for the time being. I agree with you, Clutch. This is not a predicted 11. If this was my 11, I ain't starting Lukaku. There is no way in hell I'm starting him. Like, if stinkers and misbehavior needs to be punished, and you can't just keep starting. I'm not saying Tuchel should drop him, because I understand there could be problems, but do I give a shit at this point? Like, can Lukaku cause more problems on the bench than he did against City on the pitch? I don't think so. So, yeah, for me, Havertz certainly starts. I don't even know who I'd play next to him, but Pies. If Mount is on that right-hand side, would you play Kai and Lukaku up top together? Would you play Kai and Pulisic? Kai and, I don't know, Timo?
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned Timo. It's interesting because Brighton, we could get in behind Brighton quite a bit. Werner could be interesting, but yeah, I mean, I tell you, Havertz and Werner up top could be something, because obviously they have the connection. That could be something, but then again, it's Werner. I don't really rate Werner.
Who does?
It's so hard. I can't.
A lot of people, you'd be surprised,
bro. I can't do this, because every time I put someone somewhere, I'm like, well, there's always a but. Like, there's no
it's true. It's
position. True. It's like so fucking annoying. Like, why can't these guys just deliver enough for me to say, yep, you're starting? Like, that's, by the way, I'm literally Tuchel right now. This is what Tuchel's like in his meetings. He's like, well, when he discusses with his assistants, I'm sure he's like, yeah, well, but he doesn't do this, or well, but like, there's not. It's so annoying. I don't know what to do. See, I think he'll play Havertz and Lukaku if we play this up together. I don't think he'll play Werner again up top with him, because I don't think that's worked. What I would do, I'll do Havertz and Werner and see how it goes. Yeah, I'll do that. See how it goes, because at the end of the day, there's always room for, adjustments in the game. We're only starting this, so, it could go differently in the game. We could have subs and things.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just because I changed my mind, I'll just show quickly on screen the team that I would actually play now.
Sorry, one more thing, Laurenz.
Go on.
I didn't mention on Lukaku. The one more thing, I actually kind of want him to start tomorrow, actually, because do you know why? I want to see if he's learnt from the Man City game, whether he realises he did wrong. Because I swear to God, if he does not press, or if he acts anything like he did in that City game, like, I'm going to lose my shit. So I just want to I want to see whether he is realising, what he did wrong that game. The lack of effort. Like, surely in his brain, like, he knows he wasn't running. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, if you put him on the bench tomorrow, I won't really get that answer. Like, I want to see 2 days later how he plays. So I kind of hope he does start tomorrow night, because I'm going to be watching him very closely. Because this guy, like, as everyone, he's getting on everyone's nerves. So let's see what.
With the
let's
vein
see
in
what
your
happens.
forehead, I hope he doesn't start.
Yeah.
But,
I'm just
yeah.
go on.
I don't know. No, I was
I
just
think-
going to say, I just think it's an absolute disgrace how he said you don't have to question my commitment. Then he pulls off them shenanigans against City. Like, the fuck? I don't know, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. This is the team I would start. I don't really care whether it's Pully wing back or Callum wing back and the other one in the front three. Don't really care, to be honest. Maybe on the back of last game, actually. Oh, that didn't work. On the back of last game, maybe this. Because I was not happy enough with Pulisic up front. By the way, one thing you said earlier, Pies, the only thing you really disagree with for Tuchel is not doing anything at halftime. I disagree with him not deciding not to press. I disagree with that from the get-go. But yeah, this is the team I would play just because I don't want Mount in this
Are you sure he
role in the
instructed that, bro?
4-2-2. Huh?
Are you sure he instructed that though? Because he was going mental at Ziyech and Lukaku and stuff. Like, I don't think the aim was not to press. I think
But
it was
the
probably
players
to
that
press
came
and
on for them
organise.
didn't press either until we went 1-0 down. So I can't imagine it was instruction. Or I imagine it must have been instruction.
I think it was more organised pressing at certain moments that they didn't do it. Like, not an all-out high press, but sort of, I don't know, when a certain player has the ball or something, that like use it as a trigger. I don't think he would just, like, you can't say those. Tuchel's a very honest guy. You can't say those comments and then just be like, oh yeah, sell to the players, oh yeah, we're not going to press today, we're going to sit back. That's not, he wouldn't do that. Like,
ignore the players in the system, but just the shape rough itself was obviously like this last game. And I think the point was I didn't do it perfectly, but play a higher line, but don't press to make it very compact so City can't get through us. But if you press, you automatically stretch yourself, and then you make it, and then these follow up, and then these follow up, and then even if you play a high line, you still open spaces. But if you don't press and you play a high line, which we tried to do, then you make the midfield extremely compact, and for a team with the strengths of City, make it difficult. I think that was his plan. Not be as defensive as we became as the longer the game went on, but I think this was essentially his plan on purpose. And that I slightly disagree with. But fair news, maybe it wasn't. That's just my speculation. But
I can kind of see it. Like, we did have a lot of, with that shape you just put, it kind of did lead to us having those three sort of attackers on the counter attacks. But then at the same time, if that was his plan, then you obviously question his front three choice, or at least Ziyech, because I mean, he just lacks the pace. So, that wouldn't really make sense to me, but fair enough.
Yeah,
I mean, it would make sense in a way, because that Ziyech is going to be the guy to drop deep and put the pass forward.
But then you basically play the front two, like just hope Cover plays those passes, I suppose, or play Jorginho, I guess.
I think Jorginho was kind of needed last game, because I think we lost a lot of possession where I think he could have calmed things down, but they played a lot of pressing. But I think at the same time, you also had, like I said, Pulisic was playing a lot deeper. He was playing the Mount role, which he cannot play. He's not anywhere close to being good enough to do that, because he was dropping deep and he was defending deep and then trying to catch up. And I don't think he's, especially with the Pulisic we got now, whose pace is just not there anymore for whatever reason. I think that was the problem. Like, if you were going to do that at halftime, Pulisic should have came off, Mount should have came on, if that was your intention. But at the same time, I thought Ziyech had a really bad, I wouldn't even mind if he was playing the passes, but that one pass to Lukaku that was 30 yards over hit, that pissed me off pretty bad, because I was
Lukaku was offside anyway.
Whether he was offsides or not, that's still a pass you have to make. Because if he was onside, how much more pissed are we going to be? Even more. So you still got to make the pass.
No, but what I'm saying is because Lukaku was offside, Ziyech rushed the pass or just way overhit it.
I think even for a guy like Ziyech, who his main strength is passing, that should.
Yeah, no, it should definitely be better. I'm not trying to excuse that he effed it up, but however great or shit the pass was, if the striker's offside, it's all irrelevant in a way.
Also, I don't know why they weren't switched at any point, like him and Ziyech, but that makes zero sense.
Neither do I. But yeah, I would like to play this. To be honest, what I've been craving for months at this point is for Mount to get to play here again. Because I think last season, as in, even though his goal involvement got better this season, in terms of his performances simply on like eye test and like playing well, I think he's much better off the left than he's off the right. But the problem is we don't have anyone that's good on the right because Ziyech isn't good enough consistently, in my opinion. And none of Cho or Callum are great here. And even Kai isn't great here. If you want to play someone else here, I definitely don't want Timo Werner. So maybe play Mount and Cho and then switch them. Give Mount like at least a little bit of time on the left because I do think it would help him. Also find a bit of confidence again. I think he just finds things a little bit easier over there. But maybe that wouldn't even be the case with Alonso over there. Maybe that would only work with Chile. I don't know, to be honest. But yeah, this is the team I would pick. But yeah, for various, and if Thiago isn't fit, obviously just put Rudiger in the middle and put Sarr left centre back. Just because then obviously if Thiago can't play, he can't play. But yeah, it is what I would pick simply because I don't want Mount as the right number 10 in there for 4-2-2. That's what kind of changed my mind. Is that the exact same team we played? No, it isn't.
James was the left wing back, but he got hurt at like the 30 or 40th minute, and then Alonso came on. It is the exact same. Oh, no, sorry. Thiago Silva was not there. It was Christensen, but yeah.
Lukaku started that game, mate.
Did he?
Yes.
I swore I just saw he didn't.
Because Lukaku scored for us.
Oh, yeah, he did. Never mind.
So the fact that Lukaku doesn't start already changes everything. But yeah, maybe it isn't the best idea. I'm just saying, for me, that would be.
But to be fair,
I'm not saying it would win us the game. I don't know, but I would probably pick that. I mean, we're all playing Brighton. We played 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. Someone, Glover said in the chat earlier, it's embarrassing that we are worried about Brighton in the first place. We wanted to win the league. If we want to win the league, you can't be worried about Brighton. But we are worried about Brighton. So, Pice, score prediction?
2-1 Chelsea.
Loving that Ash Ketchum look. Appreciate you, Amit. Appreciate the donation. You've got to catch them all, bro. You've got to catch them all. 2-1 Chelsea. That's what Pice said. Bloody hope you're right, bro. No, do you want? To be honest, I hope we win, but I hope you're wrong because can we, at some point, for the life of me, get back to keeping clean sheets? Because
I don't see that happening against Brighton. They are a very, very attacking team.
My only hope is that if we scored, because Brighton, and I mean they scored it against us. They just scored against Palace. They always score late goals. So I feel like if we score 2. We might keep a clean sheet, but as long as we only score 1, they will get 1, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. The one thing I just thought about is Lamptey's going to be going up against Alonso. Oh, Christ.
Yep, he is. But what else are you going to do? Do you know what I mean? Like,
no.
Play Kennedy. Do you know what I mean? Change my mind. Start Kennedy. Can't be that bad.
He actually might, to be fair, to deal with Lamptey.
I think the only game he might start because by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't realize, Chelsea are still trying to get Emerson back. The report is now saying that Emerson wants to come back. Whether you believe that or not, up to you. But that's what the reports say. So we're apparently not giving quite up on it. What? Really? See, I'll tell you a little secret now, ladies and gentlemen. Shazaib. Sorry if I butchered your name, but said, I've realized the pattern here. Laurenz wears a hat only in match previews and not in rating streams. Simple reason why when I wear a hat and when I don't. When I don't have, either when I don't have time to shower before a stream to wash my hair and fix my hair, then I wear a hat. Or like today, when I used my motorbike and had a helmet on, it ruins my hair and I don't have time to shower again. So then I put a hat on. So nothing to do with whether it's preview or rating stream. It's just what situation my hair is in, essentially. As much as that sounds very vain, if you saw the hair without the hat, you would understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, Pies, unfortunately, you make a good point that Alonso against Lamptey could be a worry. But yeah, no, just wanted to tell everyone we are still apparently trying to get Emerson back, but let's see whether that happens or not. Clutch, not preview, score prediction. 2-1 for Pies. What would you go with?
If Lukaku starts 1-1, if Havertz starts 3-0.
I'm a big fan of that idea because I started Havertz. 3-0 is a bit much, I think. I don't think we're going to make that happen. Do I think we'll keep a clean sheet? No. So if I'm being perfectly, totally honest with you guys, I think we're going to play 1-1 again. But I'm going to go with Pice and say 2-1 Chelsea. But my honest head score prediction is going to be, like, if you put money on it and you asking me what should you bet on, I'd say 1-0. But I'm going to say 2-1, and that's what I'm going to put in the play. Does the clutch Pice? Do you guys do the play predictor thing on the 5th stand out? Do you know?
I don't. I've seen it before, though.
I do it. It's quite fun. But half the time you just get it wrong. The other day, I said 2-1 Chelsea against City, by the way. They scored 1 goal, right? So I got the goals by City right. And therefore, my 2-1 Chelsea score prediction got me 10 points because City did score 1 goal.
Yeah, I mean,
so, weird points.
If you could vote for, like, Chelsea yellow cards, then I think I'd be a millionaire on a Lonzo bot.
Yeah. No, exactly. That is very true. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, another 2-hour stream. Maybe you boys even enjoy it. Sorry, might be some females watching, so maybe you guys enjoy it. But we didn't intend it, but sometimes we just get caught up in talking about things. So again, big shout out to both Pice and Clutch, and of course Charlie as well, for being here. Check out Pice and Clutch on Twitter. Both of their links are down in the description. Check out Pice's website as well, of course, for all the latest Chelsea news. But yeah, we're going to round it out here. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate every single one of you that has tuned in today. If you're still here, big up yourself. Subscribe if you haven't already. Would be super sick if we managed to get to 13k subs today, but we're like less than 40 away. So maybe, and if you're still new, if you're still here but haven't subscribed, hit that big red subscribe button down below. Smash the like button for me as well. Let's get to at least 100. We can still do that. So just one click of a button. Doesn't cost you any money. Barely cost you any time. But yeah, let's hope that my head is wrong and we do actually get the dub tomorrow. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea. Upwards and onwards. And we'll see you next time.